Welcome back to the Movie Draft House. I'm your host, Mark. I'm joined by co-host Jeff.
Hey.
And it's
hello.
It's the Movie Draft House.
Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of the show. I listen every week.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks.
So it's a new month, which means a new theme, but it also means new music here on the podcast. And before we get into what we watch this week, we want to plug some new music. And the music this month is brought to you by the Los Angeles, California alternative rock band Here's to Now with their song Thieves. It's when I first got onto them, their music, I forget how I was introduced to them, but I reached out several months ago, and because we had music lined up for a few months, so I reached out and I was just like, hey, this is a dope song, can I use it on my podcast? And whoever ran, I contacted on Instagram. Instagram is a fabulous networking tool, but I contacted them on Instagram, and whoever was running their account was like it's threw out some crazy hey, you have to sign this and this and this, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm not, all right, never mind then. And then they were like, oh, we're just joshing.
Yeah.
they're not an incredibly well known band. They have a really cool sound, a little bit screamy. So if you're not into,
that's going to be new for us.
Yeah, if you're not a screamo connoisseur, I mean, it's not bad. It's not completely yell, but it's a alternative. I don't even know what genre. I'm gonna make up another genre.
Okay, I'm ready.
Screamo metal. Maybe that is.
Think that
maybe
exists.
Screamo is metal. Yeah. Anyways, hit the show notes so you can find all of their links to social media accounts. They're doing big things. They got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, everything. They're doing it big. Here's to Now, Thieves. Jeff.
Yes.
What is the theme this month?
So this month, we're giving our own reconnaissance. We're looking at the films of Matthew McConaughey. Very simple sort of theme that we should be able to hit, no problem.
Listen, if we don't hit the theme one week, we should just fucking back it up.
So that's funny. So the movie we watched this week was called The Gentleman.
I know where you're going with this.
2019. And the very first scene, Matthew McConaughey gets killed. So I'm like, well, shit.
Or so the movie wants you to believe.
I kind of liked the idea of me picking this and then him just being dead right off rip and never shows up again. I kind of would have been okay with that in a comedic sort of way.
Right. So this is directed by Guy Ritchie. Came out in 2019. I think you said that. But what is your history with Guy Ritchie?
Not much. I looked briefly over his filmography, and I know Snatch is one of his big movies, which I've never seen. It's, I believe, well beloved. I've seen Aladdin, which I really liked. I think it's one of the better remakes of those classic Disney ones because it didn't feel like the same shit over again. It actually felt fresh. But I think that's it. I think Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels I maybe have seen 20 minutes of, and I thought it wasn't for me. I saw a little bit of his Sherlock Holmes. Wasn't for me. But that's about it. What about you?
Yeah, so I saw a long time ago. I can't tell you when, but I saw Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and then I remember really enjoying it just because it was different. It's very high paced. It's a high paced dialogue movie. It is a heist movie. and it's it's set in England, like most of Guy Ritchie's films are, and then I immediately went when Snatch came out. I remember being highly interested in Snatch. It stars Brad Pitt, and I remember really liking that as well. And so, and then like he did some other movies. I didn't see him. And then I think I came back around to him with the movie Rock and Rolla, starring Gerard Butler, and I saw that and I was like, this feels very much like his early movies, except with just a different lead. And then the Sherlock Holmes. I thought the Sherlock Holmes films were, to me, they were fine. Robert Downey Jr. is charismatic, and he really holds that
Jude
entire.
Law.
I do love me
Jude
some
Law.
Jude Law. Yeah. But they were very. You could tell. This is Guy Ritchie with a big budget, and I thought they were very good. And then then he starts making some other stuff, and like he made The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I haven't seen, but I did see King Arthur: Legend of the Sword, starring Charlie Hunnam, and that was kind of meh. And then I saw Aladdin. I was like, much like you, I was like, man, this is really good. It's highly entertaining. Will Smith's great as the genie,
Right, and he doesn't at any point try to ape Robin Williams. He very much was like,
Right.
I'm going to do my genie. This is how my genie is. I think it's because, and one of the things about Aladdin is it came out right after The Lion King, which is just a lesser version of the original.
Right.
Like it doesn't justify its existence by doing anything different. Whereas the Aladdin one is at least its own film.
Yeah, and so I didn't see The Gentleman before our watching here. I didn't see The Wrath of Man, but I recently just watched The Covenant. And I think I did a 5-minute review for it, starring Jake Gyllenhaal as a Marine in Afghanistan back in early 2000s, and that was really good. I really enjoyed that movie, and I'm just like, this guy has a ton of hits, but he's not talked about like one of the best directors in the game right now. And I struggle to figure out why. And it may be the type of movie that he does, because most of them are like this type of movie that we just watched. Heavy dialogue, heavy paced, mixed storylines that kind of come together, towards the end of the movie, and then the culmination of the entire story takes place. But I don't know why he's not more highly regarded than he is. Because you look at the IMDb scores, you look at the Rotten Tomato scores for his films, and they're all pretty high. But yet, he's not being asked to direct, large budget films. I think King Arthur probably, or the Aladdin was probably his largest budget. But essentially, he's just kind of found his little corner of Hollywood, and he's the only one that I know really is making these types of movies. But yeah, I just struggle to figure out why Guy Ritchie isn't more popular than he is.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. Like in watching this movie, I think what he is a solid 7 out of 10 director, right?
Oh,
yeah. You're gonna get some pretty solid stuff. But it's not, and I can only go on the limited amount of films I've seen, and I just feel like none of his stuff has blown me away. Right? Yeah. That was fine. That was good, and I include The Gentleman in that. I think The Gentleman is a strong 7. It's got a lot of things going for it, and then it has a couple choices that I find a bit annoying, but we can get into that. So, but generally speaking, I think that this is a fun movie, and I largely enjoyed it. How did you feel watching it?
Yeah, it took me probably a good 30 minutes to really get on board. Is because, the first scene happens and I'm like, fuck. Matthew McConaughey, who is, I think, the only non-British actor in this film.
Well, technically, Colin Farrell is not British.
Okay, you are
He's
correct.
from the UK, but
but the film wants you to believe that he's killed, in the first minute of the film, and then I'm like, okay, and we go through kind of a world building of sorts, for this film, with the introduction of different characters, and I generally thought the performances were very good. I particularly really liked. I think Colin Farrell's performance was top notch. I love him in this movie.
I love him, full stop. And so I'll tell you, when I was watching the movie, I was all right. So let me get my big problem out of the way,
Okay.
and then I'll tell you when the movie got good for me. So my biggest problem with the film is the choice to have it sort of be narrated to you by Hugh Grant, who is really good, and he plays this sleazy kind of guy, and I kind of like his performance on its own, but I didn't like the whole jumping back and forth between the McConaughey's right hand man Ray and then back to this and that story. That I just didn't like that, and I don't think that I think the only really reason they could do that or needed to do that would be to introduce, that Hugh Grant's character early, so that you know why he's in the story. Because technically, he doesn't show up until really late in the story, chronologically speaking. But so I feel like maybe if they had started the movie with him reiterating the story and then kind of left all the middle stuff out, I would have been fine with it. I just didn't like all the jumping back. And I know there's parts of what happened in those jumps to modern day that play into the end of the film, but it was really, I every time we cut back to him, I was like, shit, here we are. Like, it just felt like the movie stopped.
Right.
And then we had to kind of pick the pace back up, as opposed to keep the train rolling. Because this movie has a lot of good forward momentum. But it took a minute to get going for me. And
yeah, I mean, same with me.
Yeah, and when it clicked was frankly when Colin Farrell showed up. Because most of the time I'm like, this is fine. This is just a normal gangster movie. This is fine. And then Colin Farrell showed up, and he was my favorite thing. Just he's just awesome right from the jump. And he gives the movie that much needed lift. And then the movie kind of picks up. Then Matthew McConaughey's character starts doing some serious gangster things,
Yeah.
And you start to see some heads cracked. And that's when the movie really picks up the pace. And I think it has a satisfying ending, but then it went for a second ending that I didn't think it needed.
Right. And
those are my two annoyances. I didn't like the narration thing, and I felt like there was one too many endings. There was one too many parties involved.
I can second that. That's and that's kind of Guy Ritchie's thing, is that he takes multiple threads and he just he tells individual stories on these threads, and then the threads come together at some point, and he's now we have this big large event. I really like Jeremy Strong here.
Oh yeah, he plays off of the different. He's like another head gangster, but he's very different in his approach to how McConaughey does it. McConaughey is that sort of don't F with me thing, and where this guy, Jeremy Strong, is much more like just arrogant. It's like a subtle arrogance where you just kind of want to punch him a little bit.
Well, and he's flamboyant, and it's it's vastly different. So the only other thing I can remember seeing Jeremy Strong in is the HBO show Succession. And man, he's fantastic in that. But he's very subdued. It's like almost like he's this brooding character in that show. And he's not a large guy, but he's got this temperament throughout that entire show. And to see him here, I appreciate his acting now. Is because he's a very different type of character, but very committed, and his character gets a lot to do and very little screen time. I like the decision.
Payoff to his arc, right? And that's kind of the thing with the whole Hugh Grant. I felt like they made Hugh Grant such a big part of the story, but at the end of the day, what he does doesn't really result in much. Right? Like they talk about this guy who runs a newspaper, and he's trying to end Matthew McConaughey's career because he felt slighted. He didn't get a handshake. And Hugh Grant gets hired to do that. And then Hugh Grant decides to blackmail them. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to the rest of the story. Like, the rest of the story would just kind of play out anyway.
I think his character is ultimately just the reason for everybody to get together at the end. He's like he's not the linchpin, but he's just the thing that's there at the end of the movie where everybody, Colin Farrell comes in, and Charlie Hunnam is there, and Matthew McConaughey's there. And he is why they come together, even though his ending, his story ending isn't really it isn't anything, but I really enjoyed the performances here. I didn't much care for the actual story, because I don't really care about warring mob factions. You had the Asian guys. And then, McConaughey and Charlie Hunnam's his right-hand dude. I wanted more McConaughey, honestly. It's because I feel like his performance was also one of the strongest. But we got very little of him throughout the first, kind of hour or so. And then when he's on screen, then he comes on screen, and then we get his full stuff. The whole scene where the sequence where he's trying to get back to Michelle Dockery's character.
That's one of my favorite parts. That sequence of him going full bore, and when he busts in on Dry Eyes, and Dry Eyes has oh shit on his face. Really strong moment, because it's an earned moment where we have already seen Matthew McConaughey be quite vicious and significantly dangerous. He had that thing where he poisoned that guy, and the guy's puking everywhere. Really,
I like that one.
That was a good scene. The projectile vomiting was a little much, but it was still good. But you get this idea that this guy is not to be messed with. And here, Dry Eyes has put his hands on McConaughey's wife, and we know
he's going to rape her,
Yeah, he's literally, we were about to have a rape scene, but fortunately, McConaughey shows up in time. And, you just know that Dry Eyes is screwed at that point. There's nothing left that he can do. He's dead. But before this, McConaughey's wife very much shows that she is not a damsel in distress, as she has got 3 guards, or 3 people, Dry Eyes and 2 guards, and 2 bullets. And, she kills 2 of them, and they don't believe her, right? They step to her like, you're not going to kill, bam. And so I really thought that sequence was really good. And then it pays off again later in the movie.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Eddie Marson playing he's kind of a separate gangster of sorts. He's the guy in the office. He's really only on the phone every time we see him.
Well,
or
isn't
yelling
he like
at somebody.
the guy that hired Hugh Grant, the newspaper
yes.
guy?
Yeah.
Because he's not even a gangster; he's just a powerful publisher.
Right. Which, if you want to boil it down, gangster.
Okay, he's a gangster with words.
Gangster with words. You know, some people would call anybody with power a gangster. But I just, there are scenes here in this film where I'm just like, yeah, man, this is good. This is good. And then we go through these, these threads that I don't really think need to be in the film, but they are. And so we go down.
Let's dive into
just,
one of them.
Well, so Charlie Hunnam goes on this sequence where he's trying to, what is he looking for? He goes out with some of the henchmen dudes, and he's trying to get a phone. Oh, that's the phone sequence.
Where he's chasing the guy down for. I liked that. I thought that.
Yeah, I didn't think that it needed to be there. Is because like we're already told that the character of Ray is a badass. He's kind of a jack of all trades type dude. And I just think that thread was there to show us that he can handle business. Even though the film kind of establishes that he can handle business very early on. And that was just one of the threads that took up, it was probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes of screen time.
Because the phone. All right, so we're kind of missing the importance of the phone. He's not just trying to get a phone. So the scene beforehand, he's been asked to retrieve this girl, this daughter of one of these other guys, powerful gangsters. And so he goes to get her, but then one of the guys jumps and splats out the window. But these punk kids that kind of reoccur a bit, like they seem to show up in various scenes, have caught it on video of this kid being killed and sort of cover it up. They have to chase him down to get the phone. It's just a fun bit of action. I don't know that it necessarily needed to be there, but I thought it was lively. And at this point, I bought into the character of Ray. I like his sort of mild-mannered way of handling things. Like, he tries to avoid violence, but when it comes to it, he's got to do it. So I bought into Ray at that point, and I was fully invested in the character. So it's kind of fun to watch him run around and chase these guys,
Yeah, and I do enjoy. I did enjoy Charlie Hunnam's performance in this particular sequence, is because it shows we're led to believe he's kind of he's a badass. But at different points during this chase scene, he's winded. You can tell that he's not wanting to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then we find out he's been running with this like fucking Uzi machine gun the entire time.
And he doesn't open with that, right? He's like, here, I'll pay you for the phone. Like, he doesn't kill for fun. Like, he's not that kind of guy. And even when he does pull the gun out, he shoots it in the air and lets the kids get away. Just give me the phone. And so he's kind of like not as dangerous as his bosses, but his boss at the same time is not happy about the various bodies that keep piling up.
There's different moments in this film. Who dies? Oh, it's the guy that ends up in the freezer. And
Dry Eyes, yeah.
No. That wasn't Dry Eyes.
Jeremy Strong?
It was the kid.
Who ends up in the freezer?
Yeah, early on in the film.
That was Dry Eyes.
No, was it?
I'm pretty sure that was Dry Eyes. Because he's like, you've not seen this guy before? And then that's when he shows him the video of him, Matthew and Dry Eyes together at the stadium and everything, because he's like, you lied to me.
No, I don't think it was.
All right. Okay.
It's when Charlie Hunnam's getting something out of the
in the other freezer.
In the other freezer. Yeah.
In the freezer at Ray's house.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the guy. Was that the guy that jumped off the balcony? I think
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. And like and Hugh Grant's there, and Hugh Grant's telling him the story, and and he's trying to entertain Hugh
Just
Grant.
you saying that pissed me off a little bit. Like Hugh Grant's there and he's telling the story. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he making this so theatrical? Like, I know we're watching a movie, but in the real, let's pretend that what we're watching is the real world. Why is this guy going to go into this obviously dangerous gangster's house and waste his whole day telling him shit he already knows? And I know that he's trying to prove, hey, I know these things, I figured them out, but he could do it a lot more concisely. It just is there for the movie, and it doesn't even add anything to the movie. I didn't like it, and you just saying it like made me not like it again.
What other movies has Henry Golding been in? He looks familiar. His name's familiar, but I haven't.
I'm not particularly sure.
Crazy Rich Asians. Anyway,
He's Snake
he looked
Eyes.
familiar. I did. Oh, was he?
Yeah, he played Snake Eyes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he did.
He was also in The Gentleman.
Ah, I've seen that.
Yeah, that's where you know him from.
Anyways, I don't. All right, so let's. I'm trying to. Because there's not a ton to talk about here, because the film, while I would regard it as good, it's largely unremarkable.
So you're not going to walk away from this one thinking you've watched some sort of Scorsese gangster film. It's a little more stylized than Scorsese.
There's very little character depth here.
Right. I don't think there's a ton of character depth, yet there are some of the characters that, like, I don't think Matthew McConaughey's character really gets a lot of meat. Like, he has cool scenes. I think this movie is a cool movie, but there's not a ton of depth. And
I think you can probably say that about most Guy Ritchie films. And I think about it, is that they're all very stylized and cool, but you boil it down, and none of his films really have those deep character arcs that you're probably looking for when you're talking about a like I'm just thinking of the most recent one I saw, The Covenant. Jake Gyllenhaal's character. The entire movie is spent with Jake Gyllenhaal, but very little character depth is given to him, and I don't know why. Maybe he writes his films like that, and it probably and I can answer it myself, but it's probably because he doesn't want to spend too much time with any one particular person, especially in these films where we have multiple main characters. He doesn't want to get bogged down into one particular character's story, so he's giving everybody kind of the glossy finish. Colin Farrell's one of them here in this film. I want to know a lot about Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell's written very well. Colin Farrell acts his ass off in this character.
He's a cool character. Like he's
a cool character, right?
Like his introduction again is what I like. Yeah. I want this character's movie. Like everything that the character Colin Farrell plays a character named Coach, and everything he is involved in is about the coolest shit. All right, he has a boxing.
He runs a fight ring
where he's trying to keep kids off the street. He's just, I'm trying to keep them out of trouble. But the kids, they are trouble. They go and rob Matthew McConaughey, and then while they're doing it, make a damn rap video. And the shit is so cool. Like it's like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't need to be there, but it adds to the style of everything going on with Colin Farrell's character. Like when he's introduced, these punk kids are giving him trouble, and he shows them who's boss, and it's so satisfying to watch. So to me, I would watch a Coach movie because I think he's such a cool character. And we're both noted on this. Colin Farrell month has got to happen at some point because I love this guy and I think he smashes it. And again, is my favorite part of the movie.
And I think I mean, the person we spend the most amount of time with is Charlie Hunnam, and we don't get really any depth from his character either. And so it's a theme, or it's a consistent thing with Guy Ritchie here in this film, is that we get introduced to a ton of different characters, but none of them get really any type of backstory. And ultimately, I think for the purpose of what I think Guy Ritchie was trying to do here, it probably works. But for a better film, this type of movie or this particular movie with this cast probably could be considered great had these characters been written with a little bit more depth. But as is, it's a fun watch. But ultimately, it's one that you're gonna forget about in a week.
You're not gonna, like with The Departed, you watch and you go, I gotta tell my friends to watch this shit. And so, this isn't that movie. It's still fun. Like if it's on TV and I'm like, hey man, you should give it a shot. It's pretty good. It's that kind of movie. Really cool, but at the end of the day, it's just missing a little bit of like substance to send it all the way home. And then it's unfortunately bookended by the worst parts. So I talked about Hugh Grant. I'm not going to harp on it too much, but again, I didn't like his popping back and forth into seeing his narration. I found the character kind of annoying. And he's written that way and probably told to act that way. My other part is at the end of the film, you get this really great scene where Matthew McConaughey gets his comeuppance, but exacts revenge on Jeremy Strong's character for sort of organize. Like initially he's like, I want to sell you my business for $400 million. You can make your money back. I just want out. And Jeremy Strong manipulates a way for him to get the price lowered by having it being robbed, by Colin Farrell's gang and just kind of all of that stuff and working with Dry Eyes. Well, at the end, this is where I was getting confused. He shows Jeremy Strong Dry Eyes in the freezer because he killed him. And he's like, you know who this is? He goes, no, I don't know who that is. Why are you showing me this guy? And he, of course, has the video to prove him wrong. And he's like, listen, I'm not emotional about the money, but let's say, based on your math, you cost me $260 million. So you're going to pay me that, and I'm going to keep my stuff. At this point, he's sort of caught out because Matthew McConaughey has all his guards around him, and they've taken out his other bodyguards, Matthew's bodyguards. And he says, once they agree to the payment, he goes, like I said, I'm not emotional about the money, but I am emotional about my wife. And then his countenance changes, and he says, for that, I want a pound of flesh. And he gives him a knife, and he's like, what's he say? If you're a penny short or an ounce off, he's going to kill him. Just really great closing. They should have ended it there.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They had that kid that jumped and died. His dad is apparently a important Russian something or other. And then this just pops up right at the end, right? I mean, they mention it a little bit, but they don't do anything with it midway through the film. But then right at the end, the Russians show up. But then they're killed 2 minutes, like not even 2 minutes later. Like just, we got you, we're Russians. Bop, 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 bop. They're dead. And then the movie ends. And it felt like it neutered such a strong scene by having this meaningless shootout that didn't actually apply to anything. And that was the other part. I was like, that's kind of a bummer because my trajectory through this film was largely positive. Like I started at a base level, and as the movie kept going, I kept liking it more and more. I kept getting into the characters, and then Hugh Grant would show his face and it'd dip back down. But then we'd get Colin Farrell and it'd jump up, and I'm like, okay, this is enjoyable, fun gangster movie. And then it just kind of gets that little bleh at the end that just felt like, you had it.
Yeah.
You some movies in too late, and I think this is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before about how movies can, finding that sweet spot. I think the last film we talked about finding that sweet spot to end was, into the Spider-Verse, and
I will not say anything bad about that.
No, it's not as bad. It's that it had several opportunities to end before it did, and it would have been very satisfying and still been a complete movie.
I think you picked the wrong film, but I have
hit the back catalog for that review.
I love that movie.
We bookended it with I Got the Hookup too. We
okay,
hate
listen.
that movie.
All right, you don't have to bring it up again. I'm sorry,
but no, I agree. I agree. I just felt like maybe Guy Ritchie was he got a little greedy with his storytelling here, and he thought that maybe the audience wanted some sort of just last payoff of anything,
of something that had not been earned, though.
Right.
I agree. So the payoff of Jeremy Strong getting Matthew McConaughey getting his revenge on Jeremy Strong is a payoff from everything we've seen at the beginning of the movie going forward, right? You're introduced, one of the earliest characters you're introduced to is Jeremy Strong's character. And at the end of the movie, when he's getting his comeuppance, that should be the end. Because this Russian guy shows up for like half a minute at the middle of the film, and then at the very end, his gangsters show up and get immediately murdered. It didn't need to be there at all.
Yeah, I agree. It's poor form of storytelling. I think. I think we probably could have gotten, revenge on Jeremy Strong at some other point in the film before it ended. And still had a complete story here. But, for whatever reason, Ritchie decided to tell it this way. But, you only hit the balls you swing at, right?
Yeah, I think that's how how the saying goes. You only hit the balls you swing at.
Anyways, Jeff, I don't think we should drag it on too much more.
We don't need to belabor this too much longer.
Right. Do you recommend this one?
No, but barely. It's like it's just on that edge. Like, I don't think you're going to be disappointed watching it, but it's, at the end of the day, just has nothing to leave you with when you're done watching it. You're not like so many movies we watch and I'm thinking about afterwards and I'm feeling maybe a lingering emotion. This isn't that. Yeah, I can't really say that anyone necessarily needs to watch it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't, I'm probably cemented as a Guy Ritchie fan. I just feel like this one it's entertaining, and if you see it, you're probably not going to be disappointed that you watched it. It's not the worst thing you're ever going to watch, and it's not the greatest thing, but it is entertaining. I'm not going to recommend it, but also here on the podcast, we've seen a lot worse. And so it doesn't get my recommendation, but I'm not mad that we watched it. Sometimes I'd be mad at you when we watch some shit.
It's not my fault. You don't have to keep bringing up I Got the Hookup. Do I bring the fountain up to you all the time? No.
You only blamed it for the reason you died.
That's true. It's that bad.
Anyway, Joe, what are we watching next week?
I don't remember. Hold on, let me pull my notes up.
I know you died. It's Killer Joe. All right. We're watching from the year, I think it's 2011. 2011, Killer Joe, starring.
And you have no excuse.
You don't know that I didn't die.
I thought I would have heard of it.
No, it stars Matthew McConaughey and Emile Hirsch. amongst some others.
Thomas
It's
Hayden
directed-
Church. I love that guy.
Thomas Hayden, yeah, that guy, he's good. It's directed by William Friedkin. We only got one writer on this movie. We had 3 on the last one. But anyways, where is this streaming at?
Probably legitimate means.
I had to go to legitimate means. I had to spend money on The Gentleman.
Listen, it is a $4 to $5 rental probably, and I think that's where you want to be. It looks like it's available on Tubi.
It's also available on Prime.
With a subscription, it says.
What is a subscription?
No, it's on Prime. Yeah,
Oh, dope.
you can watch it on Prime. So I'll go ahead and put that on my watch list.
Anyways, if you want to get at the podcast on any of our social media accounts, you can find us at Movie Draft House. We're on not here, but we're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You're watching on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button when it pops up down below, so you don't miss any future content. And throw us a like, a follow, or subscribe. We appreciate it. Make sure you're following the podcast on all your favorite streaming platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, we're there. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review.
Please. None of that 1-star. Do your research. We're not doing research around here.
This is a no research podcast. Listen, we're
not
looking it up
doing
as we're recording. All right. Anyways, if you want to get at Jeff on Twitter, and let him know, hey man, you need a new heart? I got you. You can find him on Twitter at Podcast by Jeff.
If you want to get
if you want.
Mark and let him know, like if you say, hey Mark, do you remember when Jeff was talking about how many F-bombs there was in Uncut Gems? You can also let him know that The Gentleman is the film that holds the record of the most amount of times the C-bomb is dropped in a film.
Oh, I was going to mention. So, all right, that's interesting.
Because I looked it up midway through the film. I'm like, I'm hearing this a lot, and I don't remember ever having it. Because in America, it's even more like of a faux pas to say than the F
it is
word.
a taboo.
But
it is a taboo word.
In other countries like England and Australia, it's not a big deal.
It's like the word fuck.
Right, and so, but it's littered throughout the film, and I think I read it was like 26 times, which is a record apparently.
Well, so I was watching it with my wife the other night as we're recording, but and she's like, why are they saying the C word so much? And I was like, I had to pause the movie. And I was like, listen, I said it's a British film, and over in England, the C word is like our F word, and so they really bothered. And she is a sailor. Listen, man, she will swear with the best of them. But like, I have never, like, I think maybe I've heard her say it once. And when she said it, she like gasped at herself. She was like surprised that she said it. I was like, oh shit. But no, I noticed that too. And it made me think, I wonder how many other Guy Ritchie films, like his early films, I had to go back and watch. I don't really want to do that. But
No,
I'm
don't do that.
I'm interested in like how many times the C word cunt is used in like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. But anyways, I'm glad you brought that up
because I'm watching the movie and I didn't Google how many times is it used in The Gentleman. I said, what movie says this word the most? And it immediately just popped up, The Gentleman. I'm like, that's hilarious.
Well, anyways, we talked about what we're watching next week. Oh, we wanted to shout out the music. New music on the podcast this month. Here's to Now with their song Thieves. Be sure to hit the show notes down below. I'm pointing down below. I love to point down below. For all the links to their social media accounts, their the website. They're doing big things, so be sure to follow them. And you can you can like their music on all your favorite streaming platforms. They're doing big things. We appreciate them.
You can also
Jeff,
check out Spielberg chronologically. M. Night Shyamalan, wherever you get your podcasts, if you want to hear a little more from me.
Jeff, give them some words of wisdom.
No thanks.
We'll catch you next time.